Oh, the whistling never gets old. Welcome, everybody, to Crossing the Streams. Welcome. The ultimate show where we answer the universal question, what should I be binge watching now? I just finished something and I got to start watching something else. Well, you've come to the right place. This is episode 88. 88. Can you believe it? I know. Maybe chill with the whistling, boys. The 88. They're on our YouTube channel. There are 87 hours, soon to be 88 hours of TV binge watching suggestions.
The same number of podcasts as there are keys on a piano.
Hey, there you go. This is our.
That's
we
a thinker.
Themed it
It's
like
a
black
thinker.
and white episode or something. But head on over to the YouTube channel. There's a link in kind of the little caption with wherever you're watching this, most likely. And you can follow us there. You can dive into all the episodes. On Thursdays on my podcast, Classic Conversations, I do a bonus episode. We highlight segments from the various live shows, never all of them from the same show in the same episode. So never know what's going to happen there. So you can have it delivered to your ears as well. We have two guests today. This is for the East Coast and the West Coast. It's not 4 guests. It's 2 guests. We have Zack Wiseman, favorite of the show,
Zack.
friend of the show,
Hello.
lost son. Zack, how are you?
I'm great. I'm so good. I love honestly, out of all the podcasts I do, this is one of my favorite ones.
All
Top
right.
5.
All right.
Thank you so
Yeah.
much. That is high honor. It is a high honor. And remind everyone about all your podcasts that you do.
Oh, honestly, if you just open up anything, if you have some old busted watch that works with the internet, just type in Some Nobodies and you'll see roughly 35 podcasts or weird shows that me and Dylan produce. I'll talk about 2 today, one of which, my favorite that I've ever done, Silicon Angels. It is found footage of IT phone calls of a sex robot manufacturing shop, and all these guys have to call in and figure out what's wrong with their sex robot and why it doesn't work. So if you want to listen to those phone calls and have somebody try to sell them a warranty, check out Silicon Angels. The second one I'm going to talk about, Create Your Own Pod Venture. Dylan, my best friend, my partner, did such hard work on this thing. We wrote 18 episodes, but you choose which order you listen to them. So you listen to episode 1, you find out the weird situation you get yourself into, and then you choose if you want to listen to episode 2 or 3, depending on your choices. You can either die, you can get eaten by a bear, you can have, you can end up in prison, or you can find the love of your life. That's up to you, really. However, you choose your own podcast, Podventure. Dylan Terry did it, but it's great.
I will say Zack has A, the most creative podcast, and B, delivers on execution. But let's get to our new guest, a brand new, soon to be friend of the show when he makes his multiple appearances. Asterisk, let's see how he does. No, it's just, that's a lot of pressure.
It's a lot of pressure. We
Michael
measure.
Colby, welcome to
What's up, Michael?
Hey. Well, if you think that Zack has the most creative podcast, then you haven't listened to Jack Billings Presents Haunted Apartment Complex.
Oh, well, tell us all about it.
You just did.
Okay.
Well,
we forgot to do the theme song. We forgot to do the theme
holy
song.
moly.
Let's do it real quick. I can't
What's
rob.
wrong with us?
okay, no,
All right, Michael, go ahead. We'll get right back to you, Michael. Don't worry.
Okay. Is there going to be music or do I just do it a cappella?
Music. Do we look like we have a budget, Michael?
No budget here.
Okay, here we go.
Boom, boom.
Is there music?
Here's the story of some lovely fellows who spend way too much time watching the TV. All of them have jobs and friends. Well, not really. Just between you and me.
Pop that, Zack.
They made a live show
No,
out of their
Of all their
hobbies.
hobbies. Every TV's watching Dream. Jeff and Sal and Robin, Bob and Sal and Howard. And also Sal, they call it Tossing Streets.
Ron.
And then one day they went live on all the platforms.
Wow.
Ooh, that's
You
good.
can hear the people laugh and shout and scream. Still can't find another word that rhymes with left one. But man, we cross those streams. Here we go.
All right, we cross those
We
streams.
cross
the
the
streams.
We cross
We
the
cross the
streams.
Hey, we crossed
That's
the
the
stream.
way we
Michael
do
does
it.
it.
We cross the stream.
Boom, boom. What do we got? Jerry, gentleman, and Ron. What's up, Jerry? What's up, Lee?
Jerry Lee.
Welcome, Michael. Finally, some manly facial hair.
Yeah, finally.
Loving
Thank
the
you,
new
thank you.
puberty version of the theme song is a huge hit. Excited about
Nice,
that.
nicely done, Jerry.
Very well done.
Hey, Lee.
And then there's Michael.
Lee,
There's Michael.
yeah, may have gone over the
Yeah, I
top.
know.
with
Lee,
Story
got-
of Mike.
Lee knew we meant.
I really messed that up, guys. I'm sorry.
No, you're perfect.
No.
You're great. That was great. I was gonna let Michael go. I was just like,
Well, I thought we were going to do like a duet, and then I got nervous, and then I only was thinking about Sal. So I just had Sal.
I'm glad I'm on there 3 times in the
Oh,
open.
yeah.
Great.
That's how my heart goes.
Thank you, Zach.
that is awesome. So, all right. So we got Zach. Do you know? Do you have a? Wait, let's do.
Oh, sure.
All right. Well, with Zach here, we're gonna do a little abridged Netflix
Yeah. All right, so if you don't know what this stupid show is, what I tried to do a while ago, this category on Netflix showed up, which was a top 10 in US, and I absolutely hated this thing because it didn't make any sense because you can't watch this outside of the US, so this is a top 10. So I was trying to figure out what the metrics was in making this, so I watched this every single day to see why Americans thought some of this stuff was good. Here, it's a CK, by the way, but it doesn't matter. Here is what Americans thought was number 1 through 3 on the Netflix today. So number 3, they got this weird little thing, and it is called I Came By. And I actually kind of like this thing. It was a solid thriller. You don't get a really good thriller anymore. Like Knives Out really teaches you how to do a solid thriller. This one is a decent one. It's written and directed by Babak Anvari. It pretty much follows a young graffiti artist who discovers a shocking secret that would put him and the ones closest to him in danger. I say watch it. It's good. You can do stuff while you're on, while it's on. So it's fine, digestible, and aggressively fine. You'll forget about it, but hey, thanks. That really means a lot. Number 2, you have this absolute dumpster fire called Love in the Villa. Now, I hate this thing more than some people's lives itself. This is written and directed by Mark Steven Johnson, stars Kat Graham and Tom Hooper. You might remember Tom Hooper. He is the big gorilla man from Umbrella Academy. Now, what this show is, this is a show that I wish I'd never have ever watched. I cannot stand how stupid this thing is. It's like a modern version of Parent Trap that never needed to be made. So please, if you're on Netflix, skip this absolute piece of trash. And number 1, we have on the top 10 of the U.S. movies, End of the Road, which is written by Christopher J. Moore, directed by Millicent Shelton, stars Queen Latifah, Ludacris, and Macaulay Lee. And this movie was not good.
Not good.
Not good.
Not good.
So
It was-
hey,
Good's
Not
cousin.
good.
hey,
Not good.
Zach, I have to ask, and Michael, maybe
Yeah.
you too as well. I
Yeah.
feel bad asking because Howard's not here.
Mhm.
But what do you think of She-Hulk?
I think it's written for a specific audience, and I'll keep watching it. I think Daredevil's going to show up. It's fun, but I think that it is very pointed, and I think that it gets old quickly.
She is pretty hot when she's green, now I gotta say. And the
Oh,
green,
absolutely.
yeah,
Oh,
and-
absolutely.
yeah.
I signed up to Tinder just to see if there's a fake She-Hulk on there that I could just keep swiping right on. My wife is very upset with me.
I mean, I matched. I can't let him down.
I got to see what this is like.
Hey, brought to you
Gotta
by
go on those
Fago. You like
dates.
my Fago shirt?
Oh,
The
nice.
Nice.
Whoa, you're a juggalo?
Are you a red pop or a rock and rye guy?
Rock and Rye.
Of course.
Didn't know Dwoskin was a juggalo. That's cool.
This is not Juggalo.
Oh, that's the Juggalo
Yeah,
soda.
it is.
That's
Totally
number
is.
1 Juggalo product right there.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe Juggalos drink it, but it's a Michigan
Uh,
classic.
Not many people drink it anymore.
If you're grabbing a Juggalo, if you're grabbing a Fago, you're getting it from one of them.
Wow.
I mean, it's a good soda. I'm not saying anything bad about it. I loved it.
I will also like to say that my wife is still into House of the Dragon.
Mhm.
So she's still into that. She was never watched Game of Thrones, so we got that going. It's
Hey, quick question. Did she happen to watch the British Bake Off with the kids, the junior British Bake Off?
I think she likes that, but she refuses to watch the proposed American version.
Oh yeah, that one's stupid.
Yeah.
I don't need that.
Yeah, that one.
Give me British culture or don't give me anything.
There's something fascinating.
I agree.
There's something fascinating about kids doing any kind of baking to me.
Oh, especially with the accent.
Like
they're just so cool.
Yeah,
they're so smart.
When you're talking about young kids, maybe don't end the sentence with.
Yeah, that was a weird way to end that sentence.
Yeah, it was a little uncomfortable.
Zach, let me show you. Oh man, I don't think anyone on that show is older than 12.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, it doesn't sound good.
No.
Doesn't sound
It
good.
doesn't play well.
Okay, well, I didn't mean it like that. I'm just saying it's quality TV when there's some just interested kids that are learning some real cool stuff and people they can look up to. I think it's cool.
Speaking of culinary shows, have any of you guys caught Rat in the Kitchen? Have you seen this show?
No.
It's on the Food Network. It's where they have these baking contests, but they put one person in there who's purposely screwing up the recipes, and you gotta figure out who it is in the kitchen. It's pretty
heard
funny.
about this.
Yeah, it's pretty funny.
Is it any good or is
no?
it
It's terrible, but it is like you get a moment's worth of humor. It's not you get the payoff, and that's good, but the buildup is not particularly.
I think there's nothing funny about screwing up food.
Yeah, no kidding.
No,
I don't see the humor. So
that's some of the things I don't like about food challenges. Like when you watch a food challenge and they grab like those 2 pieces of meat and there's a whole back wall full of meat. I'm like, what do they do with the rest of all that meat? They're not giving that meat away. They just gotta throw it away, right? Like there's just so much food over there. I don't understand what they do with it.
And they're running out of ideas to do with food shows. I mean, how many different ways can you do contests about baking shit?
Right?
The Chopped, I think, is one of the best ones. Where it was
it's Cutthroat Kitchen or nothing.
Chopped is
Iron
great.
Chef.
Chopped is
Iron
great.
Chef
It's like 2 cherries, a Spanish onion, and liver. You know what I mean? It's like
I do like Cutthroat. It's like, well, you spend $1,000 to cut your friend's leg off while they have to cook. All right, that's worth it.
It's good. Well, hey, just a reminder of the drinking rules for those who are just drinking around.
Lots of drinking
if
going
anyone in
on.
the show drinks, you drink. We have a technical issue. Drink. If anyone has to be asked what platform the show is on, drink. If we forget to put if we forget any actor's name, anything, drink. If Zach's on, drink. If we put your name on the screen, drink.
We spell Zach's name wrong.
That would be
That's why I'm drunk already just for that.
I took the Hebrew approach. As long as it pronounces right,
that's fair.
It's fair.
Okay. Well, I guess I appreciate that.
Right. So you could be like for example, one example would be here. I'll say.
No, we can just do phonetics. I'm cool with just regular phonetic.
He's typing something.
Right there.
Let's see. Zaknica.
Yeah, it's Hanukkah.
If you want to still remain winner, that's fine.
I don't.
I didn't make this up, Colby. You know that.
Wait, let's take 1 second.
Yes.
Remember, everyone, Ukraine, the press, everyone, and of course,
interesting moment in Ukraine going on right now.
Yeah, still going on, man. Crazy.
They're beating the living shit back.
Yeah, I know. It's been a crazy weekend for them.
So that's good. All right, let's get into some TV talk. So what do we got? We got last week we talked about Hotel Walmart, which is a 15-minute documentary, which was actually brilliantly brought to us by Bob Phillips, and really good. Just shows you can do a really good documentary in 15 minutes.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Ron captivated us with Selling the OC.
Beautiful.
Rosner took us under the volcano.
Cool.
And I brought the show to the new heights with Piranha 3D.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Wow. So today we're going to cover, what do we got there? We got RRR. So we got Untold, Operation Flagrant Foul. We got Metalocalypse and the Rings of Power.
Mm-hmm.
So we're gonna kick things off with RRR, and we're gonna give it to Zach. So when Zach, we were talking, and I said, "Hey Zach, what show you want to do?" He goes, TV or movie? I go, either. And he goes, RRR. And I read it because I know Zach. I read it as, like he didn't like my answer. And I'm like,
I
either
didn't.
one, dude. He's like, no. RRR.
Okay. So as some people know, I have a fascination with consuming every bit of content I can possibly find, and then trying to get my friends to watch it so that we have something in common, and we never do. But one thing popped up to me a couple weeks ago, and I tell you, it has consumed at least a full year of my life since this came out 2 weeks ago, and this is RRR. Now, I'm pretty sure it stands for Rise, Revolt, and Revolution. I'm not 100% sure because sometimes it stands for Fire and Water as well. But this came out last year, this year, 2022. Now, the thing about this is the first Tollywood movie I've ever seen. And I didn't know what that was, so I had to do a little bit of research. And Tollywood is actually an Indian style of Telugu language. So it's specific to not just Bollywood. It's specific to, it's with a CK, so I guess we got to drink. It's specific to that religion and that language as well. Now, what the point of this story is, this is a fictitious story about two legendary revolutionaries and their journey away from home before they started fighting for their own country in 1920. So this is set in the early 1920s, so it is a period piece. This movie, immediately, you can see where the budget goes. There's so much money that is spent in this thing. The first 5 scenes, this movie's over 3 hours long, and no joke, I've watched this 7 times in the last week. Michael Colby can attest to it. Every single time I watch it, I tell him, please watch it with me.
Yeah,
even
he does,
Dylan,
and I never watch it.
Dylan, I actually had to make up a podcast to get Dylan to stream with me so I could start watching this movie with him. I watched it once with my daughter. She took this movie to her girlfriend's house and watched it immediately after that. Her girlfriend wanted to watch it with me to see what I thought. Now, this story revolves around pretty much 2 men, right? One man is just on this hunt to get a promotion within the British military right while partition's going on. So stuff is real bad over there. White people are doing some pretty icky things. And it starts off why this kind of royalty steals a woman, a young girl, out of a village. Just takes her because of the art that she wants. A white woman takes a village girl. And they're like, look, you got to bring this girl back or else the shepherd of this flock is going to come get you. So now they have this jungle god that is coming to find this girl to bring her back to her village, all while this man is trying to promote himself up. So now they have this just a specimen of a man. This is one of the most gorgeous men I've ever seen in my entire life. His name is Ram, and what he does is he is just the most badass man known to man because he needs a raise so that he can fulfill his destiny, which is, I'm not going to spoil it. 2.5 hours later, you learn his backstory, and it's riveting because the whole time you're like, well, why is he beating up his own people? Why is he being a traitor? Why is he so fucking beautiful? Who knows? But I'll tell you why, because once he meets his best friend Beam, who is the Wood Guardian, they become just the most bestest of friends, and they join up while saving a child underneath a burning bridge, and then they go on and they ride each other's shoulders like best friends should, and then they find out that they have the same common goal. And once they unite, then they realize that they're both just godly men, and they have to fight down raging. Did I say raging? It is raging. Something was raging. Something is constantly raging every time I watch. Anyway, it's just a cool movie, and in true Bollywood and Tollywood style, it has amazing special effects. The very first thing you see is no wolves or bears or tigers were harmed in making this movie, and you're like, all right, that's cool. I don't know why that's there. You have quickly just a man taking on 500 men to arrest one person. Then it cuts to a man trying to capture a wolf. It ends up being a tiger instead. And then you have just this beautiful love story where people can't really understand each other, but god damn it, friendship and sexy men have to prevail. And that's how this is. 3 hours later, you have a man on top of another man while they're shooting bow and arrow and spears at people, and it is very cool. Very, very cool. Very, very cool. Very cool. I have never been more entertained by a movie. I have never left a movie with a cooler, more positive message than this. I've never texted so many people and say, please watch this movie because this is impressive. It would be very easy for Netflix or Hollywood to have bought the rights to this and whitewashed it and changed up a little bit, but keeping it within this region, within this language is gorgeous. There's a cool dance number in the middle, which brings out that kind of Bollywood feel, where they really show the people around how cool dancers they are as best friends. It literally has everything that anybody could want in a movie and still be interesting for over 3 hours. It is a stunning work of art. And I cannot watch. Yeah.
Okay, I guess it's real. It's not animation, right? This is real.
No, it's live action. Yeah, live action.
Okay.
Now, some of the CGI does get a little weird, you know, when you have like tigers running around and stuff, it does get a little bit weird. But if you just stay in the story, and because it has that Tollywood, Bollywood feel, they're able to get away with more. You know, if it's a Hollywood movie and like somebody jumps like, you know, 1,000 feet, it just feels kind of weird. But because this is set in this world, they're allowed to get away with more fantastical elements, which just, to me, brings so much more character. Watching one man take on 1,000 people just to save a family, while one man is taking on 1,000 different people to save his family, and then they become bestest of friends. And super great, super duper great.
I'm looking at the trailer right now, and it seems that it seems the whole budget went into magnificent mustaches.
Dude, you know, to this day and age, it is hard to pull off both a side part and a mustache. Ron gets a side part. He does a pretty good job. I've seen better. I've seen a lot worse. But for him to pull off that thick mustache could not work. No one would talk to him. But somehow this movie pulls off multiple men, multiple side parts, multiple thick mustaches, multiple of Zack's eyes on TV all time.
All right. This sounds fascinating. It's you're convincing me to watch.
If you watch a trailer,
movie.
I promise you, if you watch a trailer, you will not turn it to something else. You will have to go, okay, I got to see what this is. I have to watch this.
It looks like one of those Ang Lee movies with people
kind
flying.
of. And the cool thing is that there's a couple people that you will recognize. So it has whatever the one Ray guy is, who was the Punisher, who was also in the show Rome. I think his name's Ray Stevens. I'm not sure about that. But he's like one of the main antagonists in this. So you have big stars that you notice and visualize, all while telling this beautiful story about a culture, a religion that I had no idea about. But whoa.
I feel like we should end every segment with, is Dwayne Johnson in it? Should he been in it? Should I watch it because
Dwayne
he's
Johnson?
not in it?
Dwayne Johnson would be the ugliest man in this movie. He would be the smallest man in this movie, and he'd probably get beat up. I mean, these guys. Let me tell you about these guys.
I think it kind of did. Yeah.
Like Lou Ferrigno type guys or something.
I mean, there's a lot of chest hair, a lot of thigh muscles. I'm probably just gonna go watch it right now.
Incredible
Cool. Do you
Hulk.
need me for anything else?
I think we're good. Unless
no, I'm kidding. I'll hang around. But seriously, this is one of the most. The Marvel movies are dipping. They're getting boring. You don't really have a lot of Hollywood things coming out anymore. And this thing has a budget. Like the second comes on, you're like, wow, there's so much just put into this, and it's a passionate movie because they knew that they were trying to sell it to Netflix, to the United States. So it is all in all a very packed and great movie.
Okay.
So, Zach, I'm sorry, I didn't hear. What network did you say this was on?
Netflix.
Netflix.
Now wait a minute. Is it
the
rated R? Is it rated R? It has to be rated R.
I hate that question.
Gotta add the fourth R on there.
It is rated R. There's a lot of blood.
no, it's not rated. It says it's not rated.
Oh well, I mean, it is filthy because I mean, there's a scene where a guy gets like a deer antler through his arm, and like this antler's dragging him around while his tiger scratching somebody's back. There's a lot of blood, a lot of fighting, a lot of people getting smashed in the face with stuff. Not many bullets because they are very expensive, as you learn in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Next up, we're gonna do Sal, and then Michael. You'll be after him.
Wow. Next, I gotta follow that. Holy shit! Nice job, Zach.
All right, we're gonna dive deep into Untold.
I'm excited about this.
Sal's non-romantic comedy.
I got some coming up. I've got some really good rom-coms coming up. So
Sally, the Christmas season is upon us.
Right now, we have Operation Flagrant Foul.
Yes, we will get to rom-coms. So if you're watching, our millions of fans here, on Crossing the Stream. Look forward to some rom-coms this fall and holiday season with some good Hallmark stories going on. But he's right. Today it's about gambling, and this is about this was an interesting story. I remember it when it was happening back in 2008. This is about a referee, NBA referee that was actually gambling on NBA games, gambling on his games, and the NBA kind of patted it down, kind of didn't want it to explode to ruin the integrity of the game. And David Stern, the NBA commissioner during this time, did a hell of a job with that, and I'll kind of explain a little bit. But anyway, let's start the beginning. Tim Donaghy, I didn't know this when I watched it. I didn't realize this, that his father was an NBA ref, and it's very prevalent in the area that he grew up in Delaware, Pennsylvania. A bunch of actually, there's like 9 or 10 NBA refs from this area of Pennsylvania. It's just crazy. I never knew that. And they just went through all the names of these guys. And I guess a lot of refs come out of Pennsylvania because it's a rough job. You're dealing with these NBA players calling fouls and not calling fouls, and it's just it's amazing. And by the way, just for starters, the footage in this, that's why I love documentaries. I love this Untold series. If you're into that kind of stuff, like Jeff just said earlier, they've got a bunch of other ones and stuff, and they did a good job on this one. All the footage is, obviously footage of him reffing games, and then his wife, and when he got married, and these guys that he kind of ran around, these bookies were all at his wedding back in like the early 80s. And what happens is he becomes an NBA ref, follows in the footsteps of his father. He's a really good NBA ref. And how he got started, like betting on his games, is it's kind of funny. It's not even really his fault. I know it sounds crazy, but he was like listening to the other refs one night, and the one ref said, like, "Oh, I hate that Mark Jackson. I just don't like that guy," And Tim Donaghy was like, just the next day, he just saw the line in the paper, and it was like, the Knicks were getting 7 or whatever. And he's like, I know that ref hates that one player for Boston, so he's probably going to call a lot of fouls on that guy. You know what? I'm going to put $200 on the Knicks plus 7, and he does this through these Goomba guys that he knew from the neighborhood. They're just bookies, and they're in that business. I forgot their names, but they're really good. I mean, just good character guys. I mean, typical. One guy I think was like Tommy Martini, and then the other guy was like Bubba or something like that. They're just in the bookie game. So he makes a bet, wins it, and these guys are like, how did you know that? This and that. He's like, just inside information just from these refs, how they talk and how I know each one of them calls a lot of fouls. So you take the over on that kind of a ref, and they start making a lot of money. He's passing this information on. These bookies are making money. It got even up to John Gotti and all kinds of stuff. It was just totally, and it just collapses on him, obviously, not to bore you with this all day, but it just collapses on him because he's making those guys a lot of money. He's making a lot of money, and he really doesn't. Then one day he kind of figures it out that he's like, I'm going to get in big trouble for this. I mean, this is like, even though, and it's kind of funny. They obviously he gets busted for it and all that. And there's an investigation, FBI, and how this is kind of funny for all of us that are on our phones every day. The FBI said they were surveilling some white collar crime guy in a neighborhood, and what they do is when they wiretap, they actually pick up other conversations like us normal people, like everybody on here. And or maybe we're not normal. I don't know. Dwoskin might be an FBI agent on the side. I don't know. We don't know. We'll find out. But anyway, they actually start listening. These guys, sometimes these FBI agents are so bored that they start listening to other conversations in the area of the surveillance that they're doing. I.e., if you live next door to these guys or something like that, they start listening to your conversation. And that's how they started. They started hearing these bets going through from an NBA ref, and that NBA ref was like in the surveillance, and that's kind of how he kind of went down. And but like I said earlier, the NBA kept it under wraps, and they kind of just squashed it and just made it like just something that he did, and he was sorry for it, and they suspended him and all that. But they never wanted it to grow bigger than it was, to get in all the details of all the games and all that. So they kind of squashed that down, and this documentary kind of shows that. And he lives in Sarasota, Florida now. His life is pretty much ruined. He can't really do anything. He does teach like gambling. He's got some gambling addiction kind of seminars and stuff of that nature. But very, very good documentary. These guys did very little time. I think they did like 15 months each, so not really too bad for what they made, and what they made millions for other people. Just kind of crazy, but good documentary if you're into that kind of inside gambling and how that kind of works, like how the line moves and how these guys can call fouls to make a game go longer so the over goes over. I mean, it's crazy when you think about it. You wonder if these games are fixed sometimes at the end of the game. I think that maybe sometimes they are. Maybe a phone call to Vegas is made and they say, hey, we need this game to go under, so they just kneel on it. I mean, it's crazy, but good documentary. I highly recommend it.
So I watched
Sally.
go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say I watched the one about Manitou. I'm not a sports person, so I don't really get into all these documentaries. But I watched the one on Manitou and his girlfriend or whatever, and I thought that was such a well-paced and interesting documentary. Would you say this one is like as well-paced and interesting for not sports fans, or is this just more sports knowledge?
No, I would say the Mantateo one was way better than this.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
I
was on the fence if I wanted to watch this one or not. So
just because of what you just said, that had more of a story on it. It had so many elements to it, where this one is just basically he bet on basketball games and he was reffing them. And it's kind of cool to see the footage though of the games that he kind of not influenced. Oh, that's what I wanted to say. So after the investigation was going on and this thing's over with, they went back and looked at every one of this guy's games that he reffed, and they said that they go by like a percentage if they get the call right or wrong or whatever. He had the fourth highest percentage in the NBA. So they said, even though this son of a bitch was betting on games, he was not making bad calls to influence the outcome of his bet. Does that make sense? I mean, maybe Rupert knows what I'm talking about or whatever.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He didn't like change the way he reffed because of his bet. It sounds crazy.
No, he was betting on games because of the value of the teams and what he knew the conditions of it. Like he wasn't impacting.
Correct.
It's
crazy.
End of these
crazy
games.
when they went back.
I actually was going to ask the exact same question, Zach. That this Untold label, the what do you call it? The series of Untold. I guess I don't know how many episodes. I think there's like 8 or 9 or something like that.
Yeah, I think
of that.
4 more.
And I agree. I think the Mantateo one is pretty much the gold standard of this right now. But as just a general subject, I would just say that some of these documentaries that are out right now are fantastic. Like the entire sports world has upped its game big time on sports documentaries.
I agree.
And I'm talking particularly Mantateo, but also the E60 about Barry Bremen and some of these other. You've done a few documentaries, and so has Bobby on the Fight Game. There are some really, really well done, well produced documentaries these days, and that was not the case just even a few years ago.
Yeah, very true. Very true. Yeah,
so it's cool. How many millions of dollars are we talking about that was put out there?
This one guy was literally making he was betting like $2 million a game, but what it was doing, it was going up the ladder. So it would start down here. Oh, this is the bet that the ref made, and then that guy would bet $1,000 on it, and then the next guy would bet $20,000, and then it would go up to $1 million bet. By Gotti on that game.
Yeah.
And they just were looking at the numbers, and this guy was like 78% hitting, which is unheard of in gambling. And they just luckily, like I said, that FBI investigator just heard and over, or they might have never found out. This thing might have never been exposed, and who knows? Might have did it.
Something like that. It always makes you wonder how many things have gone on that never did see the light of day. You got to figure for every one they caught, there's probably 10 more.
Oh, no doubt about that. It's happening.
Caught.
There's no doubt about it. So many games out there that you can bet on. I mean, come on, you can bet on Holy Cross versus Harvard in football. Somebody could do something in that game and nobody would even know. you know.
So when I was younger, I used to go down to Florida and my favorite thing in Florida was go to Miami and see the highlight matches. And a buddy of mine said, "You can't go to bet on highlight. It's the most fixed game in the world." And I'm like, "Yeah, but I don't know how it's fixed." Like, to me, it's still random, you know. Okay,
you
sure,
just pick the right way it's fixed. That's all.
Right. That's all.
What I say on football games.
All right. Well, hey, that was awesome, Sal. Good job.
Thank you very
Let's
much.
get on to our guest. We got to get on to our first time. I hope this is the right thing. Metalocalypse. Metalocalypse.
Yes. Now, this is not a serious show, nor is it a beautiful show, nor will you learn anything from it. This is a cartoon. It's an Adult Swim cartoon from 2006-ish. It's, if you ever watched Home Movies, the cartoon. No. Dr. Katz.
I've seen Dr. Katz.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. It's the same people who did those things. This is a show about, this show does my favorite thing where it has a world and it sort of puts you in the middle of the world and it doesn't explain it to you. It's just, you go from where they start telling the story and you have to sort of figure out what's going on.
Wow.
So this band Death Clock, who is the biggest band in the world, this amazing, they're actually very good. It's actually a really good band. It's Smalls, Brendan Smalls, who did the voice of Brandon on Home Movies. Again, that's not gonna but he does all the music himself, and he's actually he writes amazing metal music, and they put that in the show. And the show is about this band, billionaire idiots who just play this metal music. People flock to see their shows, and they have these huge extravagant shows where like people are just dying and getting maimed while they're playing these shows, and they keep going because everybody loves this band so much. Like they fly helicopters in with like huge metal stages that they're on, and they just drop them from the helicopters and they just fall on the crowd and just explode these people. It's like almost post-apocalyptic, the amount of violence that's in the show, but it's just because people want to go see this band, and they live in this big castle out in the middle of nowhere, heavily guarded. And it's such a weird show because you're just supposed to accept that this is reality. These idiots, and it just follows these 5 idiots. There's Squiscar Squigelf, taller than a tree. Toki Wartooth, he's not a bumblebee. William Murderface. Pickles the drummer, doodly doo, ding dong doodly doo. Nathan Explosion. And that's the members of Death Clock. And it just follows these guys around. You know, you meet their families, you know, you meet their fans. And then all the while you find out that this band somehow is going to bring on the apocalypse, the actual biblical apocalypse. So there's like an army guy, there's like a bishop, and there's like this cabal of people who are trying to stop this band from starting the apocalypse by trying to infiltrate them with these wacky characters. Like they have a TV or they have a producer that they send in there to try to like break them up, but he ends up just like being their actual producer. They send in this guy, Dr. Roxo, the rock and roll clown who does cocaine. He's like based off of what's his name from Van Halen.
David Lee Roth.
David Lee Roth. He's like a David Lee Roth type character, but he's a clown. And the whole thing is just so wacky. And I have ADHD, so like I can't watch a 4-hour movie like some people can 7 times. So these are 15-minute episodes just
All right.
following just these idiots just playing their music, and wacky stuff is happening around them, and people love this band so much that they're willing to risk, like, they sign a deal at one point with a coffee company, and they write a jingle for this coffee company. And to premiere the jingle that they wrote for the coffee company, they have a show on a volcano, and people are just flocking to this to hear this 1 30-second jingle. And all these people are getting killed, like getting thrown into the volcano. It's like the most violent but funniest show. It's so well written. The voice acting is great. The music is great. The characters are all so silly. It's just a big, silly, dumb show that you can watch if you feel like not thinking for for a little bit. Like my perfect, like, what I watch while I'm folding laundry or cleaning the living room or something.
Yeah.
You can just have it on and listen to these crazy characters say stupid stuff, and then it's over, and you don't have to worry about it anymore.
That's dumb.
So it's sort of the opposite of what a lot of these guys have talked about so far today.
It's a crazy voice cast. Is Mark Hamill,
Mark Hamill's in it.
Malcolm McDowell,
Yep.
Lorraine
Malcolm
Newman,
McDowell.
Malcolm McDowell's still alive?
Janine Garofalo.
Yeah.
This was ended in 2012, 2013.
Mm.
Go ahead, Mark Hamill. You can dive deeper.
Yeah, no, Mark Hamill, does his Mark Hamill voice. He plays the general, or no, I forget who he plays, but he does the, like, grumbly version of the Joker, like the lower voice. And yeah, just it's one of those things where you have to sort of accept that what you're getting into is going to be silly, and you might not understand it right away. But if you go along for the ride, it's sort of my favorite thing ever. It's what we do in our podcasts. It's what I like to watch, is things that are just like, here's the thing, either deal with it or don't, but we're not holding your hand through this thing. So yeah,
That's awesome. That's awesome.
yeah. And
It's a crazy
again,
cast to have never heard of this.
What's it? Was it streaming on? Is it on HBO right now?
It's on
No,
HBO.
Oh, I thought you said it was on Adult Swim. It's
Well, I think HBO kind of bought that or something.
Yeah. HBO bought Cartoon Network, so all the Adult Swim stuff is on HBO Max.
Got it.
On
Sorry, I didn't realize
IMDb, there's 17,000 ratings. It rates an 8.3 out of 10.
And honestly, if it's anywhere near as funny as Home Movies, because that show is so funny.
Home Movies is great. It was actually my other choice that I was going to talk about today. But this sort of takes that, like, character driven, that has the same sort of thing. It's like Home Movies just drops you into what's going on and lets you figure it out. They do the same thing, but this is amplified like a million times, because it's the most absurd premise for a thing, and they just sort of are all in on it. They don't pull back on anything. They don't make excuses for anything. It's like, these fans are there, people are talking about, like, the one guy talks about how they threw something out into the crowd and it chopped off 2 of his fingers, and then Murderface picked one up and smoked it like a blunt. Like, there's an episode where Murderface, like, pulls his pants down and he's playing the bass with his dick. It's just like, all this crazy stuff happens in this show, and it's like, it's not smart and it's not art, but there's something about it where when you have something that's that silly, but everybody involved is 100% in, that's my wheelhouse right there.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. So you must love Sharknado with Ron and I.
Piranha.
I liked the first Sharknado, but once it started to get, like, self-reverential, I'm like, I don't need these cameos. I don't need,
Oh my gosh.
I like something that where everybody is like, yeah, this is the thing we're doing, great. But then once it turns into a cult thing and they're like, oh, look at us, we're doing this wacky thing, it's different.
All right, fair enough. Well, I gotta say, you nailed it for your first time
Nicely
here.
done. Nicely
Well
done, Mike.
done, sir. Well done. Well done. Well done. That was awesome. All right. Well, we got one more, so I'm excited to hear about this.
What could it be?
What could it be? We are going to now go into Lord of the Rings, the Rings of Power.
Rings of
Lord
Power.
of the Rings.
So, for those of us that are nerds, I just have to say these are high days right now between House of the Dragon and Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power, right? This is, I have high expectations for both these series, and for them to happen now at the exact same time with so much riding on it for each of the networks. It's just an amazing time for us nerds right now. Zach, I'm counting on you to be able to comment on this. I know you've watched this. Michael, I'm hoping, given what I'm sensing is a little bit of nerddom, that you've watched
yes.
this.
I haven't watched any of it yet. I heard you guys were talking about House of the Dragon earlier.
Yeah.
And I watched the first episode of that and was falling asleep. So I hope it's better than that.
Well, it's really funny you should say that, and thank you for that insight, because I have to tell you, we are 3 episodes into Rings of Power, 4 episodes into House of the Dragon. I am underwhelmed at this moment from House of the Dragon, and I am thrilled so far with Rings of Power, despite some of the criticism it's getting for diversity and some of the other things that we're talking about for Rings of Power. No one is a bigger Tolkien fan than me. I grew up on Tolkien. I absolutely adore Hobbit and Lord of the Rings, the original books. I loved the original Peter Jackson Lord of the Rings movies. Didn't love the Hobbit movies.
Well, then I'm going to take your advice, because The Hobbit's one of my favorite books ever. And to turn it into 3 movies, what were they thinking?
Well, I could tell you an hour on what they were thinking.
So here, listen.
Money.
This is what it comes down to. You know, in 2017, Amazon paid $250 million for rights to the Lord of the Rings. Here's what's interesting about that. They knew in 2017 they were going to throw a bunch of money at this, but what they didn't have, and Zach, I'm betting you know this, that when the Tolkien estate went down and they sold off the pieces of that estate piecemeal, and Amazon was able to get their hands on Lord of the Rings, what they could not get their hands on was I always blow this name, Silmarillion. Yeah. And that is the prequel material that they would have loved to have been able to build this off of. In fact, what Rings of Power is built off of is essentially the notes that were not used in the original telling of the Lord of the Rings, right? So you get some of the backstory, you get some of the specifics around some of the main characters, Galadriel and some of the cities that are featured in Lord of the Rings, but you don't get the full nerd out story that you would have gotten had they gotten their hands on the original source material. On a side note, I think it's really interesting that the Tolkien estate was not sold as a single estate. It's like they broke it into pieces and never the twain shall meet, and that's okay. I think that worked out. But as it is, Amazon got this thing, Lord of the Rings, in 2017, $250 million, with the explicit expectation of a 5-year series run for the Rings of Power, Lord of the Rings, the retelling about how the Rings of Power were made and the backstory to that. That being said, I will just say this. It is a beautifully done show. The CGI is exquisite. The casting is fantastic. The production values are wonderful. I think the acting is excellent. Yes, it does the thing that a lot of these deep long run shows are doing, where they are taking time to build the storylines. There are multiple storylines happening right here. One in particular that I'm starting to get bored with. They better do something with it soon. But overall, I am thrilled to see the care that is going into this series. I have absolute confidence this is going to lead to Amazon finally being able to check the box for something they've never had up till now, and that is a foundational franchise in sci-fi fantasy. remember, every other network has it. Netflix has Stranger Things, right? The Disney has the the Marvel franchise. Amazon never had anything. It never had anything to really bank on. So I think they finally got their franchise here, and it's if you guys watch this thing, it is clear from the jump they are pumping money into this thing, and I think they're doing a really great job in comparison to House of the Dragon. Not that these two franchises are necessarily in competition, though they are, I think, from a network standpoint. In my mind, Rings of Power is kicking the crap out of House of the Dragon right now. So I just, I don't want to go too far into it. We're only 3 episodes into it, right? And we're talking about, 10, 12 episodes per season, 5 seasons. So we're just at the very beginning, Jeff. So I'm going to reserve the right to circle back around when we're further into this series, especially since this is about to change up again. That's another thing that some of these new modern series now, they change up casts and scripts after a predetermined period of time. House of the Dragon is right about to do that. I think we're 1 or 2 episodes away from the second cast, right? Zack,
Mm-hmm.
Is that right?
Yeah.
So Rings of Power does the same thing. So I am just thrilled with what we're seeing right now, and I am nerding out every Sunday now for House of the Dragon, even though I'm disappointed up to this point, and every Thursday now for Rings of Power, which Thursday into Friday now. I think it's Friday at midnight where these things come out. So I'm going to pause there. I don't want to go too deep into the story because I think we're only at the very beginning. But suffice it to say, we are trying to find out, how did Sauron the Terrible get created? How did the rings get doled out to the various races of people? How did the one ring to rule them all take effect? All that wonderful stuff. So let me pause here because I feel like you guys are just as smart as I am when it comes to this series. So I want to hear what you have to say.
Well, I think a lot of people have a problem with this show because elves and hobbits and other made up things should be white.
Yeah.
I mean,
So, that's why I came on here, just to make sure that point was made. if it's a fictional creature, if it's a fictional character, or it's in your imagination, you better whitewash that thing pretty quickly, or else the internet's going to hate you. But no, Ron, honestly, I think you said it perfectly. I'm watching both shows. I'm a super nerd. I consume all content. There's something about House of Dragons that I find just boring, and it's like I don't really care. I almost know where it's going to go. It's like I just missed the first 3 episodes of Game of Thrones, and I'm just watching it again because I know where it's going and I don't really care. Oh, there's a couple things that's worthwhile. Damon is keeping me interested.
Yep.
I thought that Crab Feeder was going to hang out for a bit, but that was cool too. But there's something that is a little unique about the Lord of the Rings show, where it is nerdy, but it doesn't seem pointless because you're in age 1, whereas Lord of the Rings is in the 3rd age. You're so far away from any characters that you know that the things that you do know are just so cool deep dives. Like when you get close to Minas Tirith and you're like, hey, that's from the other place, but it's not overgrown and filthy. And then you get to the mines of Mordor and stuff, and you're like, or the mines of Minas Tirith, and it's like, wow, this is what I saw, but nerds would know that. So they're doing a really good job of telling a story that I actually want to know. Game of Thrones, I don't care, but Lord of the Rings, I want to know why those rings were made. That was so interesting. And the thing about Lord of the Rings, like what Michael says, it just plopped you in this world. Hey, there's rings here. You got to figure all this out. Figure it all out. We're not dumbing it down. And this show's doing the same thing. It's like, that they're going to make these rings. Sauron's coming. You just heard Isidril. His name was dropped last episode. So
that's a connection to the original story.
And you're all right, now I'm starting to understand what I'm about to see. I need to see how it goes. So I'm 100% interested. I think the casting is great. Everyone's doing such a great job. To see these hobbits as like nomadic things instead of, putting their hole in the ground. They have like the grass in their hair. They just kind of pop down and then they move constantly. And seeing the evolution of elves, seeing those old school orcs and they're like white and they can't go out in the sun. Like everything about it is so cool because it's so far away that it doesn't feel like I'm watching the same thing again.
I totally agree with what you just said. I've read Lord of the Rings. I don't even know how many times. I bet you I've read it entirely, cover to cover, all 3 books, including The Hobbit, at least a half a dozen times. And every time you're always wondering, how it came to pass, where Sauron came from, how the original rings were forged, how the One Ring was created. You know, how did they fool all these races and take dominion over them? Like those questions aren't answered in Lord of the Rings. So I'm just, as just a pure nerdy geek from my childhood, I'm so thrilled to have some of these answers finally, you know, because like I don't care. Go ahead.
I'm such a fan of very intelligent storytelling, and when you watch Lord of the Rings and the Fellowship of the Ring, when you have all those creatures, those beings together, you immediately tell that there's rift between the dwarves and elves. You don't know why. You know that elves think they're better than everybody else. You don't know why. You know this man's hiding from everybody else. You don't know why. You know people are looking down these hobbits. You don't really know why, but you just have to follow along. So now it's just kind of giving you piece by piece in an intelligent way, and I think that's dramatic and intelligent storytelling instead of just people want to see Targaryens and dragons light something on fire. It's boring. I don't care.
Yeah. That's right. And you know, and listen, I do have high hopes for House of the Dragon. I do think it will arrive. I think that listen, it's HBO. I read somewhere that more than half of HBO's entire intellectual capital is put in right now into House of the Dragon. Right now. So yeah, so I mean, it's they're banking on the success, and I have nothing to to think that they're not going to succeed. I think they will with this. But
except I don't. For me, as a viewer of Game of Thrones and being kind of let down by the end of it, because it left kind of a sour taste in my mouth, it's like you need to impress me to get me to come back. Now you're just 100.
People are saying that
you're 100 years earlier. You're doing multiple time jumps. I know where this story is ending. Once Lannisters take over, I don't want to watch it anymore. I don't need to see incest and filthy white people with their blonde hair taking over. I don't want any of that. You know what I mean? So like where it is now, I'm interested in it, but it's like, I know where you're going. I've been to that door before. So,
and you know what, Zach, here's something funny that there's already been, we're only 4 episodes in, there's already been multiple CGI gaffes on House of the Dragon. I don't know if you're following this or not.
Oh yeah. The fingers.
And there was an issue with the elk that he killed or whatever it was. And, I mean, Lord of the Rings, as far as I can tell, it's just beautiful. It's flawless. The color is gorgeous.
It feels original and doesn't feel like a ripoff. That's cool.
Totally. And everybody who's watching it now, I feel like they get the same just reaction of just how beautifully done it is.
Yeah.
So I listen.
It is patient. I'll say that. It's a patient show, but if you're into that, it is the best done that it can be.
Yeah, agreed.
I'm not into prequels. It sounds like for Lord of the Rings, there were questions to be asked. Like I think all the Star Wars prequels, none of them need to be made. The only one that was worth anything to me, I thought, was Rogue One because it told an original story.
Well, the Star Wars, those were answering questions no one cared about. Like,
right?
No one cared who got guns and who got shirts and who got ships.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Like, why does this race hate this most prequels are, I think, and so. It's good, and I agree with you with House of the Dragon. It feels like I'm just watching the same story again. I'm enjoying it maybe a little bit more than you guys, but I also don't. I'm not comparing it to.
You love incest, especially between families.
True. That's your Twitter.
If I may quote Zack. But all right. Well, that's awesome. That's awesome. All right. Well, we'll have to check that out, and we'll definitely circle back to it as the episodes keep coming out. So we're at the end of another amazing episode. Oh my goodness. I want to thank our two guests, Zack Wiseman, Zack with a CK, and Michael Colby with a BY. Michael, remind everyone where they can find you and say goodbye.
You can find me mostly on Jack Billings Presents Haunted Apartment Complex, which is on the Podmoth Network. We do a silly scripted comedy podcast about a haunted apartment complex, obviously. But there's much more than that. Jack's married to a werewolf. Jack's dad was a monster that was 72 people Frankenstein together. My character gets killed like a couple months ago, so I'm a ghost now. And there's gentle vampires and all sorts of wacky stuff going on. Zack's in it as the ghost of the Reading, Ohio butt stabber.
Fair.
And Dylan's in it as Marcus Fiasco, who's a wizard who lives in the building. Everything about it, everything about what's happening is crazy.
Yeah.
But you can also find me on No Time to Binge, which is on Some Nobody's YouTube channel. We watch the first and last episodes of a television show and then make up what happens in the middle. And also PowerPoint Showdown, which we do PowerPoint presentations on things that we never saw before. Somebody else makes the PowerPoint and we have to act like we made the PowerPoint and we're presenting it.
Mm-hmm.
All very funny, weird shows.
Well done.
Awesome. Zach, say goodnight, my
Yeah,
friend.
honestly, thank you very much, Jeff Dwoskin, and all of your friends. If you like what I do, listen to Michael's show. Listen to Jack Billings Presents. It is funny. And when me and Dylan were doing our stupid shows, that was a show that really kept us going because we're like, no one wants to listen to this shit. But that was what we listened to, which kept us really just chugging along. So if you like what we do, Jack Billings is at least almost as funny as we are. So check that out.
Awesome.
Twice as funny.
Sal, say goodnight.
Oh, man.
Good night, everybody. SalDemilio.com, The Sal and Bob Show, and Janetti's Hole in the Wall Theater.com for our monthly show there in Northville, Michigan. Good night, everybody.
Ronnie.
Yeah, good night, ladies and gentlemen. I'm back on Delta Airlines starting again Sunday night. So I'll tell you what's Delta is showing on their backseat display.
Nice.
All right. And I am Jeff Dwoskin. Thank you for joining us. You can catch Sal and Bob Show. You can catch my podcast, Classic Conversations. This week I have Loretta Swett celebrating 50 years of MASH.
It's a
One of the
really good
greatest
interview, Jeff.
shows ever.
What's MASH stand for?
Mobile something.
Mobile Army Surgical Hospital.
There you go.
Oh, dang.
Damn. All right. Well, thanks everyone for joining us, and we'll be back next week. And we'll see
With
you later.
more.
Good night, everybody.
More. And that has been
Yes, sir.
another episode of Crossing the Streams. Join us every Wednesday at 9:30 p.m. Eastern Time, live on Facebook and YouTube. Follow the Jeff Dwoskin Show on YouTube to be alerted every time we go live with your hosts, Jeff Dwoskin, Ron Lippett, Howard Rosner, Bob Phillips, Sal D'Amelio. We're all in the socials. Follow us, listen to our podcasts, Classic Conversations, and the Sal and Bob Show. Check them all out, and we'll see you next week and every week when we cross more streams right here. See you then.